Trees, 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 have roots and trunks and leaves. Trees, 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 have buds and fruits and seeds. Trees, 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 a home for birds and bees. We all need our trees, trees, trees.
Trees are on the move. Over the past thousands of years, unlike the birds, trees have been migrating north. But what is tree migration, and can species migrate quickly enough to keep pace with climate change?
The idea of a tree migrating is a little bit of a misnomer. What you actually have is you have a tree. Imagine an oak tree sitting in a field. And if you've ever been around an oak tree in the fall, you've seen all the acorns that are lying on the ground around it. And those acorns don't drop very far. They're big seeds, and so they only drop right on the ground around the tree. And sometimes, squirrels will take them and run off a little further and hide them in the ground, and other birds and animals will move some of those acorns a little bit further away. Sometimes they might roll along the ground down a hill or something. And then maybe, if they don't get eaten, in a year, you'll have a little baby oak tree growing from those acorns.
Thousands of years ago, there was a species that was instrumental in the tree migration process. Grad student Ben Silliger told me about this species.
Species we're referring to that are extinct we call Pleistocene megafauna. And so these were all the large animals that used to be in North America during the last ice age. And so particular species that we're referring to are mastodons, giant ground sloths, and there's a whole bunch of other animals such as giant camels, giant wolves. North America had a large mammal assemblage that was as diverse as Africa. So Kansas during the last glacial maximum would have looked more like Kenya in terms of its animal assemblages. And so there was all these very large mammals around eating things, and trees produced very big fruit for these animals to eat. And when they would eat them, they would carry them larger distances than your average squirrel might carry an acorn today.
In addition to the species extinction, fragmentation of the land has played a big role in climate change.
Fragmentation just refers to the patches of land becoming less well connected. So that could be due to developed land like campuses. It could also be crop fields, or it could also be due to roads intersecting forest patches. And why this is particularly important for trees is because these events of dispersing a seed a long distance are extraordinarily rare. And if the seed is dispersed a long distance and the site it's at is unsuitable, it's obviously not going to grow up into a full-blown tree.
Through the extinction of animal species, fragmentation of the land, and the pressing issue of climate change, we ask the question, can tree species migrate fast enough to keep pace with climate change?
So some of the ancestors of the trees we see outside would have to have traveled from places like Florida and Georgia and the Carolinas, because those were the places that had that were most like their favorite habitats, the climates that they needed to survive. And then as those ice sheets melted in the past, things started to migrate into the Northeast. Some trees, like chestnut, for example, only made it here about 2,000 years ago. They're really slow-moving trees. And so we know the climate is warming now, and one of the fingerprints of that climate change that we're starting to see is the movement of species. And so there are things that, if Maine is the very southern tip of their range, as they start to move, they're going to leave Maine completely. Other things are starting to move into Maine that have not been here in the past. And so one thing to remember is every tree is going to be responding to climate change differently. And so you're going to see a lot of changes in the forests because all of these trees are basically doing their very best to keep up with their habitats as their climates are moving out of the state.
With so many questions unanswered about what the future of Earth will be, we should learn to enjoy what we have, because future generations won't get to enjoy what we have right now here in Orono, let alone the planet. This is Alex.
And Alex.
Signing off.
Trees, trees, a home for birds and bees. We all need our trees, trees, trees.